get started. Welcome everyone to the February meeting of the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues. I'm Sally Hart-Peterson, the chair of the commission, and we will start with roll call, starting with Heather on my left.
I am Heather Cook, and I'm the staff liaison to the commission.
Hi, I'm Tim Hall, and I'm a commissioner.
Hi, I'm Rachel Hawkins, and I'm a new commissioner.
And we like to welcome Rachel. This is her. She was confirmed last night by City Council, and here she is already at her very first meeting. So thank you for being here.
Hi, Kirk Westfall, Commissioner and City Council Liaison.
Larry Keeler, Commissioner.
Hi, yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zach Damon. I'm the Vice Chairman.
Hi, Rebecca Benedict, Commissioner.
I'm Nick Kasoniak, Commissioner.
Kathleen Mozak-Betts, Commissioner.
Allison Stroud, Commissioner.
Matthew Solomon, Commissioner.
Thanks, everyone. The first agenda item is actually the approval of our agenda, which you have all seen. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Kirk moves to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Larry seconds. Is there any discussion or concerns or corrections or changes that people would wish to make?
Just a typo.
Just a typo.
Section 2, page 2, representative. Page 1, sorry, section 2. A representative. Under section 2, approval of agenda, a representative.
I don't see. Oh, are you looking at the meeting minutes or are you looking at the agenda?
I am looking at the meeting minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, looking at the agenda, mine looks different because I'd corrected my own, but it should say Center for Independent Living. There's a missing N in there. So that's just a typo that I made. Kathleen.
I apologize, but I will not have meeting minutes. They have not been presented yet from our most recent meeting.
Okay. We will keep that on the agenda, I think, but you can just announce that at your time.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Which also works. Anyone else have any changes or discussion, or all those in favor of the agenda as amended with a spelling change?
Aye.
Raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we have approved the agenda. Next is approval of the January 17th meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Rebecca moves to approve. Is there a second? And Nick seconds. Any discussion, changes on the meeting minutes? Matthew?
Page 1, section 2, approval of agenda, a representative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Allison?
Hi, sorry. I'm going to turn on the mic. I just wanted to add that for the Pilots and Access Committee area, I also brought up updates regarding this nobody in the micro grant update. So that was really another big part of the Pilots and Access section.
Can you repeat what you said about the micro grant?
Oh, I just added an update about nobody regarding the micro grant.
For this nobody?
Property at that time. Yeah.
For this nobody?
Yeah.
So we need to add that to the minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other changes, additions, deletions, comments, concerns about the meeting minutes from January? All those in favor of the minutes as approved, as amended?
Aye.
Aye. Great, they're approved. And I also want to thank Zach for chairing the meeting for me in January, and Larry for chairing the meeting for me in December. And I am back.
That's right. We're not going to let you leave.
Next on the agenda, we have presentations. And first, we have Katie Monkovich of the Rationale Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, thanks for having me. We've got a few events left in February, so I'm going to pass out our events brochure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll highlight a few of the events that are coming up. On Wednesday, February 21st at 7 p.m. in the downtown multipurpose room, we have Socially Responsible Businesses, How Tea, Ice Cream, and Vegetables Do Good. And this is going to be a panel. We've got people from local businesses like Go Ice Cream, The Lunchroom, and Detroit Street Filling Station, and Arbor Teas coming to talk to us about their socially responsible business practices. I think that should be very interesting, especially if you're interested in local business. I think a lot of us are. Then on Friday, February 23rd at 6:30 in the downtown multipurpose room, please forgive me if I mispronounce this. I researched it a bit, but everybody seems to have a different opinion on how you say it. So it's the Danish Hygge Cozy Winter, and we are having these events throughout the winter. I believe this might be one of our last ones, but we're asking you to join us for cozy times with a virtual fireplace, warm drinks, sweet treats, and mellow music playing in the background. We'll have crochet and knitting projects, jigsaw puzzles for people to do, or you just can come and quietly read. So it's just an opportunity to come and relax, get out of the cold. And then on Saturday, February 24th, we're going to be having Screen Printing Lab with Modati Studios. And they're going to have screen printing where you can make your own designs. And they're actually going to teach how you can screen print at home, just getting materials that you might find at any sort of fabric or craft store. So I think that could be very fun. So those are a couple things we've got coming up for the rest of the month of February. I brought some books to feature for you. The first one has been an extremely popular title lately. There are a ton of holds on at the library. You might have heard of it. Fire and Fury inside the Trump White House. It's been flying off the shelves, but I thought that I'd bring it just to sort of also plug the AADL Express Shelf. The Express Shelf is where we keep some of our very popular items that have a lot of holds on them so that you can just pop into a library branch, see what's on that Express Shelf, and grab something that you might otherwise have to wait a very long time for. I was just looking for things to bring. I saw this on the shelf. I thought, no way, nobody can get this right now, so I grabbed it.
Now they really can't get it.
This is also available through the Library for the Blind in audio and large print. The large print does have a pretty long wait list, but the audio book can be ILL'd and you can receive it within a week or two. So in case you haven't...
Bard too.
What's that?
It's probably on Bard too.
It is on Bard. Yeah, you can download it yourself from Bard, or we can do an interlibrary loan. So it's probably actually one of the fastest ways to get it is our Library for the Blind patrons. But in case you haven't heard of the book, it is a journalist examining the first 9 months of President Trump's administration and all the things that happened during that time. The next book that I brought to feature is called This Kid Can Fly by Phillip, and this is a young artist and disability activist's memoir. He recounts his inspirational journey living with cerebral palsy in New York City, his challenges and triumphs, such as his popular Tumblr blog, Aaronverse. So that's a pretty fun book if you're interested in social media and city living and disability. So that one is also available through the Library for the Blind and Bard. And I wanted to remind everybody that you can contact us at the Rationale Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled at the Ann Arbor District Library through email, wlbpd@aadl.org, phone 734-327-4224, and you can take a look at our website at wlbpd.aadl.org. Does anybody have any questions for me today? Kurt?
Is this the Brian Eno who's going to be at the Downtown Library tonight?
It is about Brian Eno. From what I've heard, he is not actually going to be there. They'll be discussing his music and maybe sounds and smells that go along with that, from what I understand.
Impressive nonetheless, thank you.
Right. Anybody else have questions? No questions, Larry?
No,
I
not
was
today.
looking at Larry too. Thanks, Katie.
All right, thank you.
See you next month.
Yeah.
Next, we have Sophie Skoshalak from the Ann Arbor Center for Independent Living.
Hi guys. So I have a lot of events happening around March, end of February, so you'll just have to hang on with me here because there's a lot. So the first thing I have are events at the Ann Arbor Sill. This is the Career Services Workshop, and it's on how to negotiate salary and performance. It's strategies for, as I said, negotiating salary with confidence. It's on March 14th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. If you want more information on that, you can email careerservices@aacil.org. The next thing is a Pastries and Coffee Breakfast Community Outreach event. This meets every third Wednesday at 10 a.m. and it's a way to get to know us at the Sill if you would like to. If you need more information, that would be info@aacil.org. The next would be an event happening on March 17th. This is the Project Grow classes at the Ann Arbor CIL. It involves vertical support systems designed to grow individual plants vertically rather than horizontally. The registration fee is $10, and you can get more information, again, from info@aacil.org. The next would be the Eat It to Save It, Slow Foods Arc of Taste. That's not until April 7th, but you have to register at Eventbrite. It's a $5 registration fee, and it's from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. From the description, it says it's the arc of taste varieties at our plant sale. Now you can learn even more about the Arc of Taste mission to save delicious and distinctive foods from extinction. One of the weekly things that we always have at the Sill are computer classes and help. That's Tuesdays and Fridays from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. If you need help with like Microsoft Office products or naturally speaking computer lab stuff, you can come to the Sill, and Angie is more than willing to help you out. One of the things we do want to emphasize that's coming up is we have a new group called Guy Talk. It's a social support group for young men with disabilities ages 14 to 26. This winter we'll be building personal skills and strengthening friendships through a variety of fun and interactive activities. It meets on Tuesdays. The following dates are February 27th, March 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th from March 27th and February 27th, from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. It'll be led by William Seesing. He's a limited license psychologist, so he'll be helping out with that, and we really think it should be a really cool event. We are also doing Girl Talk, and that'll be led by one of our coworkers, Anna. That'll be on Monday, February 26th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. Then the following Girl Talk sessions will be held on Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. and that'll be March 9th, 23rd, 16th, and 30th. And it's again a social support group for young women with disabilities ages 14 to 26. Both really cool opportunities that we're just starting out with. We also have a Hearing Loss Association support group meeting. You'll have to contact Pam McGinty at pamc86@gmail.com to attend the first meeting. You have to contact her first to get the information. We also have a multiple sclerosis support group. They meet every Monday from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And to start attending, you'll have to contact Jody Burton Slowens at 734-663-0785. We also have general support group that meets every Wednesday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. And to join that support group, you can email Jason Jones at jjones5, PERAD, @icloud.com. The next thing would be Diversibility Theater. That meets every Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And you'll have to contact Chris Beatty to join that group. He is BATYMOHN @yahoo.com. Lastly, for the SIL events, we have Drop-In Art, Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays. On Mondays and Fridays, it's from 1 to 3 p.m., and then Thursdays, 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. And to get more information, you can contact art@aacil.org. Some community events that I wanted to just point out that I thought were of notice is that Habitat for Humanity is having financial coaching. The classes include budgeting basics, credit 101, and estate planning. You have to register for this, and you can call 734-274-3718 or email onefair@h4h.org. So those are some of the things that I just wanted to point out. Lastly, one more thing that's happening in the community. There's an Army versus Navy wheelchair basketball game. It's on Saturday, March 3rd. The tip-off is at 2 p.m. There's a little bit of a fee, though it goes to charity, and it's $3 for kids, seniors, and students, and $5 for adults. So those would be the events I wanted to point out. If you want to get more information, you can always visit us at www.annarborcil.org. Call 734-971-0277 or email info@aacil.org. Any questions?
Of course.
Who wants to go first?
Doesn't it? Just one. When are your computer classes again?
Computer classes
Computer lab or
are
whatever? I think he said Tuesday and Friday, but he can't remember what time.
Tuesdays and Fridays from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m.
All right.
And our computer lab is always open for anybody who needs to use it.
Allison?
I just wanted to thank you for a very thorough list and sharing of what is happening at the AACIL. I also wanted to ask you, are you or anyone at the CIL going to city event in Ann Arbor that talks about maybe what's happening with street projects or building and construction meeting, and maybe talking about the accessibility or trying to bring in some awareness for the need to make sure that the public facilities are accessible to the citizens?
I can't give you a definitive answer. However, I know Alex, our interim director, definitely has that on his mind. And we're still kind of dividing some of Carolyn's duties, which obviously you guys all know were extensive. If you want to email me or call the SIL and ask, they would be able to give you a better answer than me.
Kathleen, then Zach.
Yes, I was just wondering, the basketball game, where is it going to be held?
The basketball game is being held at Dexter High School. Would you like the address?
The public might, yes.
Yes. It's 2200 North Parker Road, Dexter, Michigan, 48130.
Zach?
And Kathleen, I can also send you the flyer for that as well, if you'd like more information. So first of all, Sophie, I'd like to thank you again for your wonderful presentation and all of the amazing events that you guys are doing. It's incredible. Could you talk about a little bit the budget courses again, and sort of, again, when that is?
With Habitat for Humanity?
That's correct.
All right. I can read you the description. They have classes that include budgeting, basics, credit 101, and estate planning. They do financial education for homeowners, and they also provide free classes. So they're all free for Rationale community members who are seeking to understand more about their next steps to realizing their financial goals, whatever they may be.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Anybody else?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Sophie. You mentioned something about a coffee hour that is a regular meeting that takes place on the third Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of missed what that was involving.
It's a still event, and people can come in and out, and if they want to get to know our staff members more, they can come to the cell at 10 a.m. every third Wednesday, and we can teach you more about what we do, which is advocacy, employment, housing, independent living services, peer counseling, Social Security and Medicare, and youth services.
So is it like an open house, sort of?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, very good, very helpful, thank you.
Any questions on my left?
I just have one final
Go ahead.
question, if I may. I apologize. About the budget workshop, is there an age limit for that? Is this just for adults, or if high school students are interested in learning budget and finance, are they able to attend?
Yeah, it's open to all Washtenaw County residents. So,
Thank you. And by the way, thank you to Alex for all of his work
Yes.
that he continues to do.
he's doing a great job, and he's a wonderful interim director. Any more questions?
Thanks, Sophie. Next, we come to public comments, and we welcome anyone in our physical audience here today who wants to address the commission to step up to the podium and ask questions, make comments. We have quite a few high school students here, which always warms my heart because I know you're here for credit, but there are a lot of meetings you could choose to go to, and the fact that we consistently get such a great audience at the Disability Commission meetings, I think is fantastic. So if any of you is brave enough to approach the podium, I welcome you to do so, but feel no pressure to do so either. So anyone?
Can we give extra credit if they ask?
I'm always giving extra credit. Yeah, I generally, and you can spread this to your friends, although I have no formal agreement with any of your teachers, you do get extra credit if you can tell us what ward you live in. And it's somewhat of a trick question, so. You can come up and share with us after the meeting if you like. Next, old business. Heather, city personnel report.
We were gonna talk about the commission roster, but I think we're gonna wait on that.
Okay, we're gonna wait on the, okay.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, the topic was that we would, with your assistance, pull together a full roster of commissioners and their committee assignments and their tenure, I think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I have a template that I can share with you
Okay.
on that we can
Great.
start from. Chair report. I know that we have been talking for a couple of meetings now about moving the start time till 4 p.m. And I think there's some question about whether or not a lot of our colleagues who regularly participate in these meetings would be able to accommodate the 4 p.m. start time. I know that Katie has said 4 o'clock is fine with her. Sophie has said that 4 o'clock is fine with her. And I also emailed Sue Deer Hall, whose assistance you may not see, but you not see in person, but she's the one that's doing all the typing and providing the closed captioning for us. So thank you, Sue Deer Hall.
Thank you, Sue.
And she also says 4 o'clock can be accommodated. So with that said, I would formally like to propose that all future meetings on the calendar for 2018 commence at 4 p.m. and conclude or adjourn no later than 6 p.m. So I am moving that. Is there a second to the motion?
There is.
Is that you, Larry?
That would be me.
Okay. Discussion. People's comments, thoughts, reactions to moving the meetings to 4 p.m. Allison.
Just a comment. I just wanted to say thank you for confirming with
Oh.
all of our colleagues, because that's one of the things that we were mostly concerned about, because I'm the one that relies on closed captioning for this meeting, so I figured it was a good idea to confirm that Sue Deer Hall was able to accommodate these
Great.
services.
Thank you, Sue.
So thank you very much for checking in on that.
I just had a point,
Yes.
Sally, if
Yeah.
I may, thank you. Well, and I wanted to thank all of you for being patient in the process of sort of discussing, moving the meeting time. I know they had discussed it last meeting, but I felt it was appropriate to have you present as well as
Okay, yeah.
all of the commissioners to
Well, I
approve
think there
that.
are still some loose ends we're trying to tie up too, so that's fine. Thank you, Zach. Any other discussion, questions? Kirk?
Thanks. I believe part of the reason for this coming up had to do with some conflict that a commissioner had who's no longer with us. So, and I know we've got new faces in the past couple of months, so I just wanted to make sure that there was, we got input from everybody, since there's sort of a built-in delay to any
Yes.
proposals and decisions that get made here.
So my understanding and recollection from the past meetings is that the 4 o'clock time generally is better for most of the commissioners who are here anyway, or those who have been continuing on. New commissioners, it'll probably be a new thing for you anyway. But my recollection is that it was, the consensus was that people were in favor of it. Yes, the initial reason why we did it no longer exists, but who's to say it could, a later start time may open the door for more people to be able to join the commission. Larry?
And my thought is if we get somebody in that position again, that it would be a lot easier to take them at that time. I mean, that had to do with sort of schoolish hours, so if we had
Right.
somebody else, that would
Right.
be, that might fit better there too, if we get somebody else in that kind of representing that kind of thing.
So, any other discussion? All those in favor of moving the start time of these meetings to 4 PM? Raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Looks like it's unanimous, so thank you. So next March 21st, it's a Wednesday, we will begin at 4 PM. And all subsequent full commission meetings will begin at 4 PM. I listened carefully to the discussion, having watched the playback of the last two meetings regarding the resolution Larry and I were working on to amend the bylaws to accommodate people within our disability sort of number, to include people who are direct caregivers or legal guardians of, or in the professional caregiving services and delivery of services to people with disabilities. I wanted just to provide a little bit more background why that came up several months ago, and our membership tends to ebb and flow as people's schedules change. But we were in a situation where we had, I think, 5 openings, a lot of applications, but we hadn't satisfied the number of requirements our bylaws says we need to have in terms of having people represented, of those people with disabilities. And so at the time, our bylaws weren't allowing us to include people who weren't disclosing that they had a disability themselves, but worked directly in terms of the caregiving of those with disabilities. And I felt like our bylaws were limiting us from accepting people who have a very important perspective to add. That said, an unintended consequence then would be that we could have a full commission of people who are all caregivers, but no one experiencing a disability themselves, and that's not the result that we want. And so I appreciate that concern, and we will talk more about the bylaws committee that looks like we will be establishing, but I think it's fair to entrust upon this committee to come back to the council for a recommendation. So my comment only is I wanted to give additional background of why that came up. We had applicants that had a perspective that the majority of the council didn't have, and was an important one, but we were limited to accommodate that based on the numbers in our bylaws. So if our bylaws need to change so we can accommodate people who are caregivers as well as people who are experiencing disabilities, I leave it up to the bylaws committee to figure out how best that should work. Does anyone have any reactions or comments? I'm not proposing a vote on this or anything at this time. I just wanted to share some insights and some background, especially for our new members who may not have been here when it first came up. Matthew?
Yeah, by way of comment, as I understand it, the original bylaws guidelines have currently been met with some excellent recruiting efforts from our colleague Larry. So I would say, is this any longer a concern? Can we table it indefinitely? Because I think it is important to have folks who are dealing with disabilities as the majority presence on this commission. And personally, I don't see a need for changing it now that the situation has been rectified via recruiting and a lot of elbow grease on the part of one of our colleagues. So I would actually move that this be set aside indefinitely. I don't think it's necessary.
Two things. The nature of this commission is that its membership has fluctuated quite a bit. And so we have been in this position more than once in the last couple of years. And so I do appreciate that it's not a concern right now, but it is something that could come back. And so personally, I think it would be good to have a more comprehensive set of recommendations. That said, if the Bylaws Committee chooses not to address this right now, that's completely fine with me.
I mean, I kind of think it's at some level incumbent upon the committee to recruit. I think this is a matter of personal recruitment through the proper channels which are publicized through this meeting.
Okay.
So I take it as a challenge to the current commissioners to build the disability community in our community, marshal those forces, bring them to the committee rather than rewriting the rule book in order to make things easier to pack the House.
So what I hear you proposing is that we deal with the root cause, which is the fluctuation. And
Correct.
I think that's a really good idea.
So rather than having a bylaws committee, have a recruitment committee.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Allison, did you have your hand up?
I just have a comment that quite similar to what Matthew was trying to say, was saying, but I also wanted to add in that I think making the recruitment activity in the forefront would be one of the things that we want to do moving forward, because I know Larry has done a lot of the recruiting, but I also think that, and I think I mentioned it before, that we all could be part of the recruitment activity. That can be one of the things that the engagement committee can do, because one of the primary responsibilities or primary duties of the engagement committee is to engage with the city and the other organizations. So I think one of the ways that we can help to recruit is just by interacting with other people outside of the commission and other organizations. So that's similar to what you were saying. That's part of the solution. And I think it's fine to move forward with the changes as long as we continue to keep in mind the necessity of speaking to the community and making sure that people who have disabilities understand that they can become more active with the city.
Just one, before I call on Rebecca, one sort of area of one nuance here that I think is important to appreciate, which you may not have caught. I hear Allison talking about recruiting activity and Matthew requesting a recruiting committee. We do have a recruiting activity function, and that is Larry Keeler. However, and this went through with our attorney liaison before, the reason why we call the committee an activity and not a committee is because the committee, the activity, i.e. Larry, and it was Amy Shepherd who was working with you before she sat down, so it was actually two people before. The activity would happen sort of not on a regular time or basis. It wasn't considered a public meeting.
Okay.
If it's a committee, you have to have a public meeting that is formally announced on Legistar, that Heather, you would have to be on a schedule with Heather. So there's actually, semantically, it seems like it's just a nuance, but it's actually technically very different to have a recruiting activity versus a recruiting committee.
Okay.
And right now we have recruiting activity, so minutes don't need to be published. I'm not sure even committee minutes do, but meetings don't have to be published. agendas don't have to be published. It can just happen fluidly. But if we have a more formal committee, which I'll leave it up to you all to discuss and maybe come back with a formal proposal. If we have a formal recruiting committee, then I think the chances are of us alleviating the concern of fluctuation of membership will be well addressed.
Okay.
So if someone wants to take that knowledge and noodle over it for a while and come back with a recommendation that we have a formal recruiting committee, I would certainly like to have that discussion at this table.
Okay.
I'm happy to spearhead recruiting. I don't know Robert's Rules of Order well enough to comment upon the proper avenue to do that, but I think it's essential to the function of this committee that there be considerable outreach to the community and to some of the areas of the disabled community which are not presently on this committee. So I'm happy to spearhead those efforts. I'm not particularly keen on getting mired in bureaucracy, but I would like to make some headway with getting broader representation in this room, not only on the commission, but in the room as spectators to increase awareness.
So thank you for taking some leadership on that. I recommend you work with Larry, who's been spearheading it, and between the two of you sort of figure out what roles and responsibilities are best going forward.
Wonderful.
Thanks. Rebecca.
Thank you, Sally. I was just going to add, until something is more solidified, that the Community Engagement Committee would be happy to take on recruiting.
Okay, to be part of it. Okay, that's great. I think that's all I have from the chair report. Any other questions or reactions to that? Okay, Rebecca, you're up next with the Community Engagement Committee.
Thank you. Our next meeting is going to be March 15th at 6 p.m. here, and we hope everyone can join us. Going forward, we will establish whether the third Thursday will be our standard time, but that can be open to discussion as well.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have a location?
Here.
Oh.
I don't have a...
Usually we had met in the council workroom.
Yep. I just haven't confirmed if it was open or not. I was going to do that.
Heather,
Okay, will you send me an email?
Absolutely.
Okay.
so look for that meeting to be put on the legislature.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ann Arbor Inclusive.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Sally. Is it safe to say that if the high school students look up Ann Arbor Inclusive and watch an episode, do they get extra credit?
I'm happy to give them extra credit.
Okay. No, it's a great show. I encourage all of the high school students in attendance to watch the show. It is very informative. In terms of Ann Arbor Inclusive and our season now currently, and what we're filming, we just filmed an episode in this current season with North Star Reach. And it's a camp that was developed in Pinckney, Michigan, that serves terminally ill children. And they do a wonderful job, provide a great service, and Ken Sibley and everyone involved with them do a wonderful job. So it was a great episode. So please look for that being aired and published coming up in the coming weeks. And we're going to continue to move forward. Thank you again to the City of Ann Arbor, the Community Television Network, and of course former Commissioner Linda Evans for all of her work.
Thank you. Next we have Partners in Access. Allison.
Hi, we did not have a meeting last week because it was Valentine's Day, and I completely forgot about it. So, because people already have dates and plans for the holiday, I decided to cancel. But I do have a few updates that I could share that would be useful for everybody here. For those of you who are not familiar with Nobody, we have been working a little bit with Nobody to try to provide a city-wide assistance to snow removal for people who have disabilities or people who need a little bit more help with the snow removal. So we are at this point right now, we have a micro grant proposal in the works in negotiation with the city administrator. And the last I have heard from nobody is that there's still the negotiation process. So before, until they finish the negotiation process, until they start the micro grant activity, is when we can start working with nobody and outreach and talking to people about finding a way to begin the process of expanding the snow removal program that they have. And the first part of it is to find a target neighborhood so that they can start the activity of providing snow removal assistance for people who have disabilities, and that involves providing accessibility to bus stops for those who need it. And for those of you who are not familiar with Nobody, I should have explained it. It is an organization that's developed by a few folks in the Water Hill neighborhood in order to help with providing snow removal assistance across the neighborhood. And I think that's really been a really great organization and a great program, and they're happy to continue talking to us about snow removal assistance. It's just going to be a process that's still ongoing until we get some activities going. And another thing that I wanted to bring up is the Downtown Development Authority has also provided an update about their upcoming activities regarding Huron Street project. And they have provided a page, a link to the page that I shared with the commission. And I'm not sure if I want to share the link to the audience, but I can try. If that needs to be done, it's a very long link. But the link starts off with www.a2dda.org/current-project/Huron Street Design. And this will involve activities with public meetings and trying to determine what needs to be done in order to improve Huron Street from 3rd Street all the way up to, I think, State Street, but I could be wrong. And there's issues with safety and repair and maintenance. So they have informed me that they're going to have public meetings for this project, as well as the First and Ashley Street project and the William Street project. So the Ashley and First Street projects and the William Street projects will have public meetings with the DDA starting the week of March 19th. They are still working out the date and the time. So they will get back to me at that. And once I hear from them, I will share the date with you guys and try to make them available on the Disability Resources website. And I think that is all. Oh, the DDA is going to give a presentation in April, as far as we're concerned.
They're going to do a presentation to us in April.
Yeah.
Oh, great. So I'll have to remember to put them on the agenda.
Yeah, it's in the email.
Okay.
I have to
So far,
confirm
we
with them that the
Okay.
start time is at 4 o'clock instead of 3:15.
Okay. Yeah,
I have
that's
to
right.
write them an email.
So you'll send me a reminder as
Yeah.
well? Thank you.
It's in the email, so.
Do I need to send you a reminder to remind me?
Okay. I'll do that. And we'll have our next meeting on the second Wednesday of March at
Which is again the
5:15 p.m. in the first floor conference room south. And I'm trying to see what date March 14th at 5:15 p.m. And I'll send an email to remind everybody about this. Thank you.
Anything else? Any questions for Allison? Okay, moving on. Recruiting activity, Larry.
Man,
Keeler.
you guys just did about most of it. Well, we did get, and I was actually going to ask you if that was confirmed. I saw that, I thought it was, but we now do have our new commissioner, Miss Rachel Hawkins, over here. And I'm glad we do. So, how many open positions will that leave us?
2?
2? Okay, so we need to fill those with 2 more people. So, you can get in touch with the mayor's office at 794-6161, or you can look at a2disabilityissues@gmail.com for further information, or you can talk to one of us, any one of us commissioners if you see us, if we're riding on the bus with you, or if we're, riding in the A ride or walking down the street, and you say, hey, I saw you on TV last weekend. I actually did see somebody in my neighborhood that said, hey, you look good with hair, because I always wear a hat. So there are people watching, and somebody might come up and ask to be interested, so if you do that, I'm not like the only one that does this. You can give them information on the commission and point them in the right direction too. Any commissioner can, and anybody who's interested can contact us, just even on the street. And actually, I do the activities thing, but Sally's been doing a lot with me, so she actually does get a lot of credit too.
Oh, thank you.
Of course you do. I mean, the chairs, you have to, but then you've been helping me out a lot, and I still do have a lot of Rachel and Nick and Matt. I have, when I get your contact information, I can send you each a recruiting packet. I know some of you are getting them late, but I do have recruiting packets that were made up and stuff with all kinds of information that you need for the commission.
Question.
And one more thing, Matt will have to get in touch then sometime soon, and we'll figure out. I got some ideas, and I'll listen to some of yours. And we'll come back next month and see if we want to form a committee.
Sounds good. I look forward to working with you and the Community Engagement Committee on this. Can you remind us what the requirements for standing on this committee? One has to be a resident of Ann Arbor. One has to. Well, what are the parameters within which we can recruit?
One has to be a resident of Ann Arbor. 75% of our commission, 9 out of 12, has to give a disability. Has to report a disability. They don't have to tell us. They don't have to walk in and tell us, but they got to tell the attorney or whatever in their application. It's kept pretty secret what it is, but we do have to have 9 out of 12 of us like that.
Oh, well, you don't actually have to be a resident of Ann Arbor to be on this commission, as our new member isn't.
But you do have to work here, and that's a special. That has to be specially approved.
Yeah,
Actually,
it does, but I'm just saying you don't technically have to.
So that's actually quite a wrinkle that I wasn't aware of until just now. So Tim, thanks for mentioning that. Several of the folks I talked to, that is.
Actually, it's not the case. You actually do have to be a resident of Ann Arbor. It is possible to be, and we found this with Rachel, it is possible to be appointed without being a resident if you have a supermajority vote from council. So, and you offer a unique perspective that's not already on the council. And so in Rachel's case, we had a lot of back and forth because she's not a resident of the city of Ann Arbor, but she works professionally in the area of disabilities. When she applied, on her application, explained the unique position that she brings. So it was not just 6 out of 11 commissioners that needed to appoint her. It was 8, I believe, commissioners.
I think 7.
City Hall, you're talking about?
Yeah, so, sorry, not commissioners, council
Council.
members. So it's not just a majority of council members, you have to have more than a majority of council members approve someone. So technically, yes, the first preference is for people who live in the city, but if there are openings and no other candidates, then someone who lives outside the city under certain circumstances can be appointed to the commission.
Would you say we're currently in that situation with 2 open seats? Would we be in that territory?
In the territory, ideally, we would, because we have already 9 out of the 11, I think, that we do have without a disability, with a disability, whether it's disclosed or not specifically what it is. Right now, anyone can apply to be on the commission if they live within the city of Ann Arbor. If someone who lives outside the city of Ann Arbor would like to apply but has a special or unique perspective and is willing to go through the supermajority of votes on city council, and there are no other people in the queue, then we would entertain those.
So I'm just trying to figure out how to proceed because I've been in conversation with 2 individuals who may be interested. So one is disabled but does not feel comfortable disclosing the disability.
That's fine. They just say they have a disability. Literally check the box, they have a disability, they don't have to disclose what it is.
Okay, and that does not go on their sort of permanent file, does not, it only goes through.
Does it go on their permanent record?
No.
Again,
No,
people
it
are
just-
very hesitant
it
to
goes
disclose
on their-
these things in certain situations, so I want to
Yeah,
remain
so they
sensitive
just
to
have to
that.
say they have a disability, but it's not disclosed what it is. The application does go to city council, though. The application itself is not concealed.
So anyone on the city council or anyone present at that meeting has access to that information?
They have to be able to see the application to know about the person they're voting on.
What I'm saying is that kept in confidence within the council, again, because disclosure is
It's
such
public
a
record.
hot,
It's public record.
it is public record.
Anything the council votes on is public record.
So that could be potentially problematic.
That could be a barrier for some people.
And the second question was folks residing outside of Ann Arbor who might possess such unique perspectives, who work in Ann Arbor, but often for financial reasons do
Can't
not
afford to live here.
reside here.
Right.
Those would be eligible with the supermajority that you spoke of.
Yes, assuming
Potentially.
that there are no other applicants in the pool who live within the city of Ann Arbor. So before you advise those people, I would check with the mayor's office to see if there are any other applicants in the pool. But right now, I don't think we have any applicants.
Okay, thank you.
Allison, sorry.
No, it's okay. I just want to add in there. When I first started on the commission in 2013, I was not an Ann Arbor resident. I did have to make a case for why I would be a valuable commissioner and provide some kind of a way to say that I could contribute to the commission with a unique perspective, as Sally said. And it wasn't too strenuous of a process. It was just more about just making sure that you're capable of explaining what you can give to the commission and explaining why you should be at the commission.
That seems to me an altogether better approach than trying to reconstitute the bylaws.
Did someone on my left have their hand up?
I gotta remember what I said. I did for a second.
Kirk did. Kirk had his hand up.
So I think these are really important questions about, if checking, I forget what the form actually looks like. It says something effective, I'm willing to disclose a disability. If you would like, I mean, we could certainly, if we want to explore whether or not that portion of the form can stay in the attorney's office as opposed to making it into the packet that goes to council. I
Right
suppose
now,
that
it's
could
all
be
one piece of paper,
makes
but
it
there could be a case made for it to be separate.
where perhaps only the attorney's office would have that information unless somebody wishes to
But we
disclose
would
it.
also need to know, because we need to make sure 9 out of 12. We
Yeah,
don't
but
need to know
some-
what it is, but I think we need to know, we need to be public about whether or not we're keeping up with the 9 out of 12 requirement.
So in the case that I'm thinking of, which is a kind of informal recruitment activity, this is the crucial issue for this individual. So I need to know on what basis this might proceed and whether it could be kept in the strictest confidence in the interest of that person's right to keep that non-disclosed.
Yeah, certainly with the state of healthcare and HIPAA laws and all that, I completely appreciate
Yeah, I mean,
the hesitation to document that.
It's a challenging issue because we have our bylaws that say 9 out of 12 must disclose. But what if someone wants to be on the commission but they don't want to disclose? Then they don't count as one of those 9 out of 12.
That's why the proposed change at first, but I'm not sure I like the proposed change, but I'm not sure I like the idea of not knowing how many people, not having any access, because, of course, the city council has to vote in anyone. City council has to take into account anybody who votes in, whether they have disabilities or not. And as far as I know, at least me and the mayor's office, and maybe Sally, have been trying to put any applications that have listed disabilities first. You know, I mean, a disability box checked first. And so we've been trying to put those first, so we try to keep the integrity of the commission. But if we don't know who, I mean, if we don't know if 6 people checked the box and 6 people didn't, then, you know.
So I think I'm trying to really zero in on what constitutes disclosure. As a person who took some time to identify as a person with a disability and some additional time to disclose that in various venues, I would like to leave that open door for people who are comfortable disclosing a disability in order to become more educated and participate in the process, while not potentially putting them or their health care in jeopardy, or their employment in any way affected. So I'm wondering if we can pursue that middle course, which would allow us to follow our bylaws without, if you will, making that any more public than it absolutely has to be.
Under the current state of affairs, with 9 out of the 11, and therefore 9 out of the 13, of people with disclosed disabilities, anyone who has a disability that wants to be part of the commission but doesn't want to join, to say they have a disability, is welcome to join the commission, or apply rather, because we've met our number. And so if someone with a disability who's not comfortable checking that box and they're a resident of Ann Arbor, then they should, right now with no one in the queue, they want to be part of it, they're welcome to apply.
That is,
and there's at this point no barrier to that.
right, and but that is current. That is not necessarily a month from now. So
That might not be true a month from now, but that's current. Yeah. Exactly. Kirk.
So I guess to wrap this up, unless other people have more questions, is it worth some conversation maybe with Mr. Frost?
I think it is worth
and
a
just see,
conversation.
and just see what options we have.
Yes.
They could be formal or informal, because city council, I mean, nobody polices our bylaws to make sure we're complying. It's up to us, basically. You know, I guess if somebody highlights something that's going on, maybe somebody would look into it.
There are people who will want to know that we're abiding by our bylaws.
Sure. So I'm just, it's worth seeing if we have some options. Is that, okay. Perfect, thanks.
And there's exactly one more point. One more point I want to make, and that is that if you check the box with this, that says you disclose a disability, it doesn't mean you disclose that disability. That just simply tells us you have one. It doesn't tell you what it is, and you don't need to tell us. We don't need to know that.
Do you understand what he's saying?
I do, but it does mean that you've sort of
said that you have a disability.
It's a binary, right? It's either
right,
or,
exactly.
yes or no. You've passed from no to yes. So that's a big jump for a lot of people. So whether you're saying what exactly it is,
doesn't matter.
That's a big ask, if you will. That's a big ask.
Good conversation, good dialogue. Any other questions? Once again, I want to thank Rachel for your presence here today and welcome you to the commission.
Excuse me, Sally.
Rebecca.
She doesn't know she stepped in.
Rebecca.
I was moving on to an old topic.
Yes.
Larry, can you send a copy of the recruitment packet
But I
to me?
could.
Yeah.
I do have your contact information, but I could.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Next, what?
I was just
Larry?
just going to say, I credit that a former commissioner, Amy Shepherd, helped with all that information, so I got to thank her too.
Thank you, Amy Shepherd. Transportation Commission update, Tim Hull.
Yeah, so we had the Transportation Commission meeting last week because the schedule's kind of odd in that sometimes it's the same week, sometimes it's the week before. And yeah, they talked about a transit zoning district that they're currently looking into implementing in a couple of areas. one along Washtenaw, kind of close to where Arbor land is, and another one like down by Eisenhower and State, near like where Wolverine Tower and the mall. And yeah, so essentially it just like for new construction would require like the buildings be closer to the street and would offer room for more, it would like actually require a higher minimum like floor usage. And so also talked a little bit about the bicycle parking policy. Like sometimes if you have new construction, like something that needs a site plan on a site, they would require a certain minimum of bicycle parking. And had some other discussions go on outside like the general purview of the meeting, because there's actually this discussion going on at the county level regarding a possible collaboration with Wayne County on a transit plan as far as like connections between the two counties. And because there are areas, obviously, we have our service to the airport, but in the Canton Express, but that's like the only connections aside from like that Detroit connector that U of M provides between the two counties. And the fact is there are several areas like on the west end of Wayne County, all of the areas like opt out of the SMART system. And I mean, the only AAATA connection is the Canton Express, but the idea would be to provide more connections of like a countywide millage for both counties that would provide connections through there. And the RTA was originally supposed to do that, but that failed, and it sounds like Oakland and Macomb don't really sound interested in putting that up for a vote again at this time. And so yeah, there was some discussion about that, and I went to the meeting where they approved having the discussions, and be interested to see what happens with that. And I guess that's what I generally wanted to update you on.
Great. Does anyone have questions for Tim or comments? Thank you for representing us. Oh, yep, sorry. Nick?
Is it would it be a rail that they're talking about, or
Yeah,
bus?
well, commuter rail is part of it. I mean, it sounds like there could be rail and bus, like, and, yeah, because the buses, yeah, I mean, I know there were some things in the RTA plan. They'd probably seek to bring back some of those, including like Ann Arbor, Plymouth, Livonia connections was one thing that was in the RTA plan. And
Anything else? Thank you. Kathleen, I know you have said that there are no minutes, but were you able to attend?
I was able to.
Okay.
I did attend the meeting, but it coincides with another meeting that I have on the same day.
Yeah.
And so I only catch the last half hour of an
Okay.
hour-long meeting, and so I would not feel comfortable at this
Fine.
time, just coming up with things with my
Yeah.
memory.
So what I'm wondering is next month on the agenda, if we just reword this, and rather than, we can always attach the minutes if we have them, but if you could just update us on the meeting if you went.
That's
you know,
perfect.
We can just do that. So it'll be an update from the meeting, and then the meeting minutes will also be attached.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
Sounds like you did what I did for a certain board meeting, Kathleen.
Announcements. Does anyone have any announcements?
I just have one announcement, folks. Number one, I just wanted to apologize and say that the person that I said that was interviewed, it was actually Doug Armstrong of North Star Reach, not Ken Sibley. He was from the episode before.
Oh.
So North Star Reach and Doug Armstrong was that interview guest. And also, for the Dexter High School wheelchair basketball game, I will be the announcer for that game as well. So I encourage all of the commissioners to come out and support a fellow commissioner, as well as the game, and a great cause.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach. Any other announcements?
oh, I just wanted to say something else. I looked in a little because I know we were talking about like snow removal and everything, and about the responsibilities and that. So I actually did a little research. I know they had like the Pedestrian Safety Task Force had discussed some things. Some of the recommendations were accepted, others weren't. And I actually tried to find out, like, okay, well, why was it the homeowner's responsibility in the first place? Well, it seems like it's just common practice. Like, even New York City does it. I was actually kind of astounded. I was, like, expecting New York, like, with how big it is, to just do it on a citywide basis, at least in Manhattan. But I didn't seem to see that. Like, yeah, it's just that sidewalks in general have been the responsibility of homeowners now, and other property owners along the way. Now, I know we in our millage decided to take on the maintenance of sidewalks like 5, 6, 7 years ago, and but we didn't take on the snow removal part. But it seems like I'm just surprised no one has even explored that. It's just one of those things that is that way because that's how everybody's always done it. And there's not really a good explanation out there is what I got from my search. It's that way just about everywhere, and that's how it is.
Maybe you could come up with a solution, Tim.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Larry.
I do have a comment that kind of goes with that. I didn't know where to put it.
Okay.
Right, since I'm not public comment people, so I figured now that Tim said that, I found it interesting. Remember that snow we had the Friday before last and the Saturday, that Friday and Saturday?
The all weekend snow.
I think I walked up Monday or Tuesday to go out and I figured the sidewalks were finally done. But you know, it was actually worse than the day after the snowstorm. 2 days later, it was actually worse because all the curb cuts in my area were piled full of snow. And, you might be able to get on the sidewalk, but if you didn't manage to get on that curb cut, you had to walk down the street until the next place to get on, which was probably a half a block. So, no, they're still covering a lot of the curb cuts.
Yeah, I think that volume of snow that we had over that long period of time, the city doesn't have, as far as I know, flexible resources in that if there is a huge weather event like that we can just call in more people or call in more plows. There aren't any more to be called in.
They like putting it all on the curb cut though.
But, yeah, and it's tough. And I use the park paths a lot when I run, and I agree. The paths were worse 3 days later or 4 days later because any melting that goes on overnight and then it freezes, and then you don't have that crunchy grip that you have on fresh snow. So
you have fun going out there with a dog too. The dog sees all these things at the curb cut and tries to go around, and you end up 3 blocks down by the time you go around it.
Nick, did you have a comment?
Yeah, isn't one of the city ordinances or regulations that snow must be removed within 24 hours if it's
that's correct,
2
yeah.
inches or more?
That is.
Yeah. Yes.
So who enforces that?
So typically, do you want me to answer that? Or?
You can go ahead, you know it well.
It's a hot button. So typically, what will happen is if a neighbor does not clear their segment of the sidewalk or the curb cuts that might be in front of their house or the bus stop that might be in front of their house, it could be, ideally, what would happen is a nice neighbor would knock on the door and say, please remember to clear your sidewalk. Someone who doesn't know the person living there or is having trouble navigating may call the city and report it on A2Fix-It, and a warning will be placed on that person's door, and then they will have, I guess, another 12 to 24 hours to comply. Or if an Ann Arbor police person or someone from the community or from parks or anyone, city official happens to notice this, they can also first knock on the door, hopefully, and request that, or they can just file a complaint. So that's how it's enforced, if that helps. Matthew is next.
So I actually have 2 questions. The first really is more in the nature of a follow-up question for Zach, which is for those of us who will be out of town for the wheelchair basketball game, is that something that we can watch a video recording of, or at least hear the play-by-play, a recording of the play-by-play at the very least?
As far as I know, the high schools where the game is played do end up producing a vignette of sorts of the game. So hopefully, as soon as that's put together, at the conclusion of the game, I can send that along to commissioners for their viewing.
And my second question is, because we have the benefit of a city council member sitting here today, I want to know, is there any sense in which there might be support for a more aggressive city snow removal policy, not only insofar as it affects the disabled who are particularly affected by any kind of difficulties or inconsistencies in snow removal? In your term as a commissioner, has that been something that has garnered support? Might there be hope of making Ann Arbor a model city in terms of snow removal on a more aggressive basis?
So this has come up for discussion on this commission when we're talking about Snow Buddy, because that's, I think in many ways, is a model for neighborhood voluntary kind of, potluck snow removal. People contribute on a voluntary basis to maintain equipment and help that organization run in the Water Hill district. So that and they're looking to expand that to other neighborhoods. On a citywide basis, for the city to take over complete responsibility for snow removal, some back of the envelope calculations have been done in terms of what kind of millage would have to be levied to do that. And because it's a seasonal, obviously, problem, it doesn't fit neatly into the job descriptions of existing staff, so it would involve a pretty great expense. So that's out there. I think what has generally been agreed to at this point, since our snow removal ordinance got more strict 2.5 years ago, I think, sidewalk snow removal, in terms of, if there's, X amount accumulation, it has to be removed within 24 hours, and particularly in terms of homeowners and also commercial businesses. And there's more widespread use of A2Fix-It, which is a great app I recommend everybody use to document, to report problems. At the end of every snow season, we're looking at the number of complaints, the number of resolutions, the number of tickets, and seeing if that's moving in a positive direction, and trying to handle it from that end before taking on a really significant expense of trying to operationalize it on the city side.
And what would be the appropriate committee to approach with those issues? Because it was interesting to note that sidewalk repair, even when perhaps not absolutely essential for mobility in the same way that snow removal becomes absolutely essential for mobility, that is somehow covered by city responsibility. Who would be the appropriate committee to take that up within the city council, I guess?
I'm assuming now that we have a transportation commission, that they are, I think, designed to embody both motorized and non-motorized transportation issues. So I think, and they kind of grew out of recommendation of a pedestrian safety and access task force. So it's really non-motorized focus. It's a significant part of it is non-motorized travel. So I guess Commissioner Hull could comment on this. I think probably the Transportation Committee could be the best place to approach.
Anything else? Matthew?
I think my further conversation would need to be with the city council at large. I'm just making an anecdotal comparison between Ann Arbor and other places in the United States in terms of snow removal effectiveness, widespread. And I would emphasize that it affects the disabled disproportionately as compared to folks with full mobility. It's a constant risk of injury and hospitalization that confronts a person with a disability really on every street corner, and that's disappointing. So anything I can do to try and address that is my goal.
Thank you. Allison, did you have your hand up?
I just wanted to add a little bit of a comment or maybe a potential question is, I wonder if it would be a good idea to report the lack of snow removal for bus stops to A2 fix it, or now I think about maybe the Transportation Commission might be a good place to do about the bus stops, because I use the bus pretty regularly and I have noticed that not all the bus stops have been shoveled off. And I've stepped into 3 feet of snow because the city has really done a really nice job plowing the snow off the street. But because of all that snow is being piled in off the street and to the bus stop area, they're not always shoveled or swept away with the snow and making sure that there's an area for people to get off the bus.
Yeah.
So I think maybe now that someone brought up the Transportation Commission, I think that would be a good venue for us to report those issues, because I have been reporting it to A2 Fix It. But I think Transportation Commission might be a good way. Is that something that you would suggest for bus stops in the city? I think I rambled on a little bit, sorry.
Sorry, I wanted to say that, one thing they talked about was the snow removal. They talked about it at the Transportation Commission. It said that bus stops were not the city's responsibility. Those were considered like the residents' responsibility along with sidewalks, and that's part of why they don't get cleared, is because of that. But now there might be an additional question of, are snow plows pushing snow onto the bus stops that were cleared?
Larry.
Well, that's my big first point is the sidewalks weren't that bad when I went up a couple days after that. The sidewalks are great. It's just getting to them that was the problem, because like Tim just said, the snow had been piled in the driveways and in the on the curb cuts. That's the point. And the other thing is, Matt, our Partners in Access Committee is also trying to work on the snow issues with those committees too. So if you want to be part of that committee, we're here and you can talk to Allison.
And I also do know part of the rationale for the Disability Commission to engage with Snow Buddy was for the elderly and people with disabilities who want to remain age in place and stay in their homes, but can't plow their driveway a second time, because you're right, or whoever just mentioned it, the snow plows do push snow right back on to the curb cuts that a resident may have just cleared. And so then the resident needs to be appraised of when the snow plows are coming, so they have to get out there a second time to clear it. And if there are elderly or people with disabilities who may not, it's not practical for them to do that. And so that's why we're doing a target study with, well, we hope we'll be doing, the city will be doing a target study with Snow Buddies, and they will, part of the process, my understanding, and Allison, you can chime in here if you like, is that they will go to a specific neighborhood and get a sense of who the residents are who need help with snow removal, and Snow Buddy will go do that for them free of charge.
I mean, that's all well and good, but I think, it also becomes a question of what are the municipal responsibilities and what are the municipal choices that we are making as a community to prioritize our limited resources. And there has been considerable outcry just in the last month or so with a particular choice of how, close to $1 million of city resources were directed. So it's hard for those of us, who are dealing with this on a daily basis to hear that has been deprioritized and made the responsibility of charitable efforts rather than a city or ADA compliance issue. So that is what I would answer to all of those comments about budget and all of the comments about the possibility, which remains completely hypothetical at this point, of Snow Buddy stepping in to save the day. And again, I think that's an issue for our city council more so than an issue for this, but I do think it's our responsibility to push the council to advocate for those people who are affected and injured on a regular basis as a result of things that could have been avoided if the resources were directed in those areas.
Thank you. Further comments?
So what's this $1 million thing you're talking about?
The allusion is to the deer cull, which I didn't want to divert us to, but there was considerable outcry in my community about that use of resources, which I believe was budgeted somewhere between $900,000 and $1 million to eliminate. Again, this is clearly an issue that some of us are well versed in, but to the ordinary citizen on the street, it's a little bit outrageous. So obviously there's a much longer story there. There's a much more involved story. But I think we could probably do a lot with those resources in terms of snow removal instead of hiring deer assassins to really, you know, shoot high-powered weapons in our community. This is a real concern for people in my neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
You asked.
Rebecca.
He asked.
They are,
I know. Thank you for answering the question so thoroughly.
they're using birth control on some of the deer as well.
Okay, moving on. Thank you, Matthew. New business. There was much discussion at the last meeting about the possible rationale for forming a bylaws committee. Just as a point of background, Amy Shepherd redid all the bylaws 4 years ago, but it was another 2 years before they even came to council. So, but I think she was sort of working independently, and there were a lot of changeovers. We had a change in leadership on the commission itself at that time, so there are a lot of barriers that may or may not have been self-imposed that took that such a long time to get through. But that said, hearing the discussion around the table today and recalling what was mentioned at the last meeting, a couple of topics that might be people might want to take a look at membership requirements. There was the discussion last month about whether or not someone is either excused or unexcused absences from the commission.
We have to address that.
Whether or not we should have a recruiting commission versus just a recruiting activity group, and what that commission, how they might liaison with the community engagement committee. So there are several topics that might, be worthy taking another look at now, and hopefully it won't take 2 years to get them to council. Some of them were legal issues too, and I think that's what honestly held up some of the issues. But I leave it to anyone who wants to come forward and take the lead. If there is a thought to be a need to look at our bylaws again, I welcome you, whoever is interested in doing it, to step up and come to us next month with a motion to form a bylaws committee. This would be an activity because it would be short term. Any other comments or questions or any other new business?
Thank you very much for all the high school students that have attended. We're very grateful for the fact that you've attended the meeting.
Do we need a motion on that, or do we just throw it on the floor and see who wants to do it this month?
A motion for what?
Oh, I mean, are we gonna discuss that, or do we open it and discuss it, or do we just throw it out there and say, okay, one of us guys,
You mean with regard to bylaws?
with regard to bylaws?
With regard to bylaws, I have it as new business because I want to say that I believe there may be a need to do this.
So you
but
tossed it out
I'm
for us to look at?
It's for anyone that wants to take it on. You're welcome to take it on, and if you want to take it on, come back next month and let us know what you'd like to do.
I don't want to take it on, but I certainly want to work with
Okay.
some people, so.
Okay, but I'll leave that amongst the commissioners to decide who wants to take that on. And Kirk, you had something.
Thanks,
business?
yeah, and this brings up a great question, because we, as you pointed out, we have activities and we have standing committees.
Yeah.
Some of which need to be noticed and others don't. And I think now that we have an almost full complement of commission, I wonder if in addition to the kind of chart that you were describing about who's.
The roster?
The roster, right, who's on what committees, maybe what their goals are, what kind of topics they take on. I don't know, and shame on me for not looking up the bylaws before asking this. Do we need to submit a work plan as a part of our bylaws to council every year? I know a lot of commissions do.
We need to submit an annual report.
We did,
Okay.
yeah.
And I submitted one last year for 2016, and it's up to me to submit one to council in 2018 to reflect 2017 activities.
Got it. So.
By when?
I was hoping someone wouldn't ask that question.
So I guess on the forward-looking side, I know a lot of commissions, they will come up with they'll prioritize what kinds of
What our goals
activity.
are
Yeah, the
going
goals,
forward.
and certainly, that can help to have time delineations or deadlines on certain activities or outcomes. And, we have, the city hires lobbyists, at the state level. So certainly, part of this commission's role is to advise council on not just issues of importance to the city, but I would take that to mean more broadly the state in general. And certainly, we would be more than happy to pass along policy agendas that we want our lobbyists to lobby for it in Lansing.
I did notice that City Council had a work session, the legislative update, a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of the commissions were asked to supply content or priorities for the city's hired lobbyists to take to the state. This commission actually wasn't asked for input, and so I mentioned that to our city administrator last week, and he said it's not too late. So if there are issues, and maybe some of the issues we talked about today with regard to road conditions and snow removal, if those are things that we need state support from, please let me know or Kirk know, and we can raise them and put them on the agenda of the city's lobbyists in the state. Is that what you were getting at?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't realize a formal request went out to commissions and that we were excluded, so.
I
They don't like
I
it.
don't
That's
exactly know how
Okay.
it happened. When I read the presentation from the work session, there were several commissions who were asked to provide feedback. And I don't believe anyone approached us for our questions of what priorities we would want to raise at the state level. And there could be some. But that said, and I think it's just they didn't, for whatever reason, this commission they didn't think to ask this commission. The city administrator has left the door open so that we may still submit questions or concerns or priorities for the city's lobbyists to work on our behalf in Lansing.
So
Yes.
if we think of anything, do we send our idea to Kurt?
You can send it to Kirk, or you can send it to me. Either one of us can get it to Howard.
I'll send it to both of you.
Okay. Anything else? Any other new business? Okay, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned at 4:49 PM.